Hi, everyone. I hope people can hear me. I'm Tom Carpenter, and thank you, those of you who are viewing the live stream either on LinkedIn or on our YouTube channel or on Facebook. Thanks so much for popping in. Just to check in and make sure that everyone can hear me. Okay, if somebody could just type into the comments of wherever you are watching, if you're able to hear me, that would be really helpful. But basically today I am going to be um, giving you a brief presentation, which is really designed for travel agents and travel advisors about how to um, uh, manage legal risk when you're operating your travel business, and especially around the situation that's rapidly developing in Ukraine. And I see that people on Facebook are able to hear. So thanks so much for letting me know. I'm going to start with just a brief PowerPoint presentation, and as I go through it, just feel free to type any questions or comments that you have in the comment section. And once I'm done with the presentation, I'll take the time to go over the questions. But first, I have to get a few professional responsibility obligations out of the way. So let me just start with my share screen and get that going. Oops. And apparently that's not working. So let me see if I can do it a different way. This is a new technology for me, so let me see. You know what? I'm going to do it differently. How about that? I'm not going to do the PowerPoint presentation. Maybe I'll record and upload another version elsewhere, but I'm just going to kind of talk you through kind of what the issues are. I have been receiving. Well, let me just start off with my professional responsibility obligations. So my name is Tom Carpenter. I'm a lawyer, and I represent clients in the arts, entertainment, media, and travel industries. Most of my clients right now are small travel businesses, travel agencies, and tour operators. Um, the states where I'm licensed would require me to let you know that this presentation could be viewed as attorney advertising. This is really for informational purposes only. I am not intending to provide specific legal advice to anyone here. Participating in this webinar does not create any kind of an attorney-client relationship between you and my law practice. And I'm also supposed to tell you that um, prior outcomes don't guarantee future results. And so, as in the law, same thing in life. Just because a court held something at one point in the past doesn't mean that they're going to decide the same thing in the future. So, if we talk about anything like that, just keep that in mind. Just a few things about me. I've been practicing law for more than 25 years. I've mostly, as I mentioned, represented clients in the arts, entertainment, media, and travel industries. I used to work in the entertainment industry for a couple of major entertainment industry labor organizations, ran the legal department at those organizations. I'm admitted to the state bars of New York and Illinois, as well as several federal courts, including the United States Supreme Court. And in addition to my law practice, which is Carpenter Law Office, I also own a hosted travel agency. So my travel business is a small hosted travel agency. So I always start off all of these presentations by talking about the fact that travel is a high-risk industry, and it shouldn't come as a surprise to those of you who've lived through the last 2 years with COVID that there are all sorts of areas where small business owners in the travel and tourism industry encounter legal risk, ranging from fraud and scams, from handling client payment info, all of the things that can go wrong when clients travel, supplier defaults, supplier bankruptcies, and then travel is also a highly regulated industry, so there's a lot of legal compliance that we have to undertake. Um, the latest, no sooner did travel start to open up after Omicron is sort of subsiding, but now we're dealing with a lot of questions. I'm getting them in my travel business, and I'm getting them from clients in my law practice who own their own travel agencies. I'm getting a lot of inquiries about what to say to clients about the situation in Ukraine and Russia. So in case you've been under a rock, the situation is that Russia has invaded Ukraine. Countries worldwide have imposed sanctions on Russia. There are widespread reports of explosions across Ukraine. In fact, just this afternoon, the report that I saw said that there are concerns that Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, could fall to the Russian forces very shortly. And as a result, tour operators and cruise lines have suspended a number of itineraries in the region, and they've also canceled port calls to Russian ports into the summer. If you're a travel advisor and your client asks you, what should I do? Should I cancel my trip? Is it safe to travel? My best advice is do not advise clients on whether or not it's safe to travel. Because even if they're not planning travel to an affected area, the geopolitical situation can change at any moment, and different people have different comfort levels of risk. So, and this is not just related to Ukraine and Russia and traveling in that region. The same, this I would have the same recommendation for clients who would ask, "Is it safe to travel during COVID?" Really, you are not in a position to gauge whether your client's comfort level is going to be sufficient for them to travel in light of whatever the circumstances are. So, my best advice would be that you should point them to neutral sources of information, such as the State Department. And I would suggest that you say something to them like this. If somebody says, is it safe for me to travel to Germany right now? How close is that? Is that going to be a problem? My suggested statement would be, there are always risks whenever people travel, and everyone has a different comfort level with different types of risk. I would suggest going to the State Department website to see what advisories are in place for Germany so that you can make an informed decision about whether this trip fits within your level of comfort. Something like that really kind of clarifies to them that it's ultimately their decision whether to take a trip or not, and you can't be the one to make the decision for them about what they're comfortable with, because what I'm comfortable with might not be what my client is comfortable with. So I also would recommend, while we're on the subject of the State Department website, it's a really good idea to enroll your clients in the STEP program, or at least give them information about how they can enroll themselves in the STEP program. The Smart Traveler Enrollment Program is operated by, it's a service of the Bureau of Consular Affairs at the State Department. You can create an account, you can register your clients there, and if your clients are traveling and there is an emergent situation on the ground, that basically lets the embassy and the consulate know that your clients are traveling, and that they might, if they need to be evacuated or something like that. That's a nice value add that you can give to your clients if you're booking travel for them in a region that might have some geopolitical tensions. In addition to, so that's how I would recommend responding to those inquiries. I want to talk a little bit about other things you can do to protect your travel business. One thing that I would highly recommend is having a terms and conditions document that has some key points in it. If you don't have a terms and conditions document, if you're a client of mine, I'm going to bet that you do have a terms and conditions document because I probably drafted it for you. But a terms and conditions document is really the boilerplate for all of your trips. It should be structured as a legal agreement between you and your client. You're going to want your client to actually affirmatively sign on to that terms and conditions document. And there are some templates that are cookie cutter templates that are floating around out there. But you might consider the fact that every business is a little bit different, and you might want to have a custom terms and conditions document drafted for your business, because somebody who books a lot of adventure travel is going to need different terms than somebody who does a lot of destination weddings, or if you do a lot of school groups, then you're going to need different terms than somebody who does luxury all-inclusive resorts or things like that. So a terms and conditions document can really protect your business, because there are a bunch of things you can do in that terms document. You can take care of legally required disclosures. I mentioned earlier that travel is highly regulated. So there are all sorts of things that the Department of Transportation requires us to disclose when we're selling airline tickets. You can take care of that in a terms and conditions document. You can clarify your role as a travel agent versus your role as a travel advisor. So, we used to call ourselves travel agents, and that was because we are booking agents of the suppliers we use. We're the middle people. But increasingly over the years, courts have held that we have a duty of care to our clients as well. And in recent years, the industry has kind of recast our profession as being travel advisors, reflecting that we really are aiming to take care of our clients. But being in that position where you have responsibilities that go in two different directions can be a complicated place to be, because you owe a fiduciary duty to the suppliers you're booking. You can't undercut their pricing. You can't rebate your commissions and things like that. But at the same time, you also have a duty of care that you owe to your clients. And so putting terms in your terms and conditions document that clarifies that can be really, really important. Advisories to clients is another thing that you can put in. That's kind of the third category. All of those things that courts have said that you need to explain to your clients. A lot of the things that I put in a terms and conditions document are things where you are clarifying to the client that it's really their responsibility to inform themselves about the trip they're taking, make the decisions for themselves, get the vaccinations that they need, get the tests that they need, health screenings, all of those things. And certainly assessing risk is one of those things. Only your client can assess whether there's risk, but you have an obligation. I mean, you can't guarantee their security, but you have a legal obligation to let them know that they can get information about what the risks are when they visit a destination. Disclaimers of liability and responsibility, that's another big one, and force majeure. So specifically with respect to the situation in Ukraine and Russia and Eastern Europe, the provisions that I routinely put into a terms and conditions document that relate directly to this are things like a provision advising the client that the supplier might have the right to change the itinerary. So under normal circumstances, that could be, your client's booked on a cruise, the winds are high, the cruise line can't tender into a port, so they skip that port of call and go on to the next one. But if you've got an itinerary that's going through a region where there is a conflict, then perhaps the supplier has the ability to completely change the itinerary, go different places, maybe even cancel the itinerary. That's all going to be according to the supplier's policy, but you're going to want to make sure that your clients understand that you don't have responsibility for those itinerary changes. Risks of travel, we talked earlier about how to answer questions, but in your terms and conditions document, you can have a provision that says that there are always going to be risks whenever people travel. I mean, there are risks when you leave your house in the morning, but there are always going to be risks when you travel, and that it's up to the client to assess for themselves whether they're comfortable taking the risk. And that's whether whether there's a conflict in the area, whether there's a terror threat, whether there's civil unrest, COVID outbreaks, all of those things. Really, you can't make those decisions for your clients. And so you can tell them in your terms document that it's their responsibility to make that decision for themselves. Force majeure is another provision that's really important. Force majeure events are anything that's unforeseen, unpredictable, outside of anybody's control. And if those things make it impossible for you to do the things you have to do for your clients, the force majeure language can let you off the hook. So, keep in mind, COVID, pandemics, and quarantines, unpredictable, outside of anybody's control. That was a force majeure event at one point in time, but as we get further into the pandemic, eventually it's no longer unforeseen and unpredictable. So the same thing with the situation in Ukraine. At a certain point, it's going to be a known event and a known risk factor. So force majeure language might not protect you in the later stages of the conflict, depending on how long it continues. Cancellation and refund policies, putting a client on notice that if they want to cancel their trip, they might be under penalties if they want to change or cancel their arrangements. You can put that in a terms and conditions document. Limitation on liability, that you're not responsible if they take the trip and something happens that's out of your control. That just because you booked the trip doesn't mean you're liable. Limitations on damages, obviously, as the booking agent, if your client spends $5,000 on a trip and they sue you for $5,000, well, that's not the amount of money that you made on the trip. So you could put a provision in your terms and conditions document that says that the damages are limited to the amount that you made on a trip, like commission and fees. I put those in terms documents all the time when I draft them for people. And then, of course, travel insurance is another provision that would be in your terms and conditions that would be important. Advising clients that travel insurance is available, letting them know that if they have questions about coverage, they should ask the insurance company, because that is the best source of information. And that if they submit a claim and coverage is denied, that you're not responsible for the denial of coverage just because you sold the policy. So those are all provisions that I put in terms and conditions documents, which could help you in a situation like this. Okay, so the last thing that I wanted to talk about is just travel insurance. I just kind of refer to it. Again, I recommend that your terms and conditions documents have a section on travel insurance advising clients that insurance is available. I also think it's a good idea to bolster that by adding an insurance acknowledgement in your client agreement. If you use a client agreement either as a vehicle to get your clients to agree to your terms and conditions document, or as part of a new client information form, it's not a bad idea to have them check a box that says that they understand that you have spoken to them about insurance, that it's important, and that they should consider putting it in place. I also recommend sending a quote automatically as part of your workflow. Whether your client asks for the insurance or not, send them a quote so you've got a paper trail that you've sent it to them, and sending a waiver form if they decline. So if you do all four of those things, have it in your terms and conditions document, have them acknowledge it as part of your client agreement, sending the quote automatically, and sending the waiver form, you've kind of built in some redundancy there so that you're protecting your business from risk by having multiple layers of protection for your business. So, insurance is important, as we all know, but if you're working quickly and you miss a step, you forget to have them sign your client agreement. Well, if you send the quote automatically, you're picking it up later on in the process. Sometimes clients won't return the waiver form, but if you've had them agree to your terms and conditions or agree to your client agreement, you're picking that up somewhere else. So the three key takeaways, and then I'm going to pause and kind of go to the any questions that we have. You can type those into the chat. Key takeaways. The first is that you're not in a position to advise clients on whether to travel. That's really a decision that they're going to have to make. That you should absolutely have a terms and conditions document in place for your business, and make sure that that terms document includes all of the key provisions that can protect you in a situation like this if your clients are traveling to a region where there may be some geopolitical tensions or conflict or even combat. And then lastly, I think it's a really good idea to have a good workflow around insurance. So I'm hoping that people can still hear me. I haven't seen any comments in the chat, but I'm going to just pause and see if there's anybody there who wants to ask anything. Feel free to type it into the chat box. And I'm not sure if the people who are, if there's anybody who's viewing this on LinkedIn, there may not be the ability to post a comment, but I see some of my clients on here. Hi Shannon, hi Jasmine, and hi Cheryl and Andrea. It's really great to see you all. If you have questions about any of this, you can reach out to me. My email address is scrolling on the bottom of the screen, tcarpenter@carpentertaylor.com. And I see I've got a question here. Hi, Tom, do you recommend a proactive email to travelers or wait for their questions? That's a great question. And I think it's a choice. There's, sometimes there is a lot of comfort that clients can get from knowing that you're on top of things, that you're a professional, that you've got information and resources that are available. I think it's a really good idea to watch the news and pay attention to what's going on, and pay attention to what's happening with suppliers. So Tauk has canceled all of their itineraries in Russia for the foreseeable future. Most of the cruise lines have announced that they're not going to be stopping in St. Petersburg this summer. And so, being prepared to answer those questions for clients, I would say if you've got a lot of clients who are booking Baltic cruises, probably not a bad idea to reach out proactively to say, in an abundance of precaution, the cruise lines have changed their itineraries. If we're monitoring it to see what the developments are. We'll be in touch with you. I think that's a really good idea to stay in touch with people that way, especially if you've got a large number of people who are traveling to the affected region, or if you specialize in that region. In my travel business, we're getting inquiries not just about travel to Eastern Europe. We're getting questions about, is it safe to go to France and Spain and England? And of course, it's right now, Europe is just now opening up and people are just now comfortable traveling. And so if that's a big focus of your business, obviously you don't want to turn that business away or be overly discouraging, But at the same time, ultimately, it's really going to be your client's decision about whether they're comfortable traveling. And we don't really know what the situation is going to be going forward. Um, and Jana, hey Jana, it's great to see you. That you're going to email me a question. That is fantastic. Hey, it's Lena. It's great to see you. The State Department seems to be overly cautious. Any other places you recommend that we can tell clients to check? When I draft terms and conditions documents, I include in the risk section a big laundry list of websites, everything ranging from the State Department to the CDC to the um, TSA, Customs and Border Protection. I put a lot of websites in there because all of those websites have information that can impact travel and can provide advisories about what risks are, because there are different types of risks. There's the risk of getting caught in a conflict zone. There's also risk that comes from being having your passport expire while you're abroad, or not having sufficient validity on your passport, or a COVID outbreak, things like that. So the CDC website, I mean, I do think that there are lots of places where um, I think there are lots of places where the government websites are perhaps overly cautious and maybe a little more conservative than I would be. But at the same time, the reason that I recommend directing people to those government websites is because it's going to be really difficult for somebody to say that you pointed them in a direction that misled them if you're going to a website that's an official government website. So that would be my recommendation. I see there's a comment uh, there's a comment on the YouTube channel, which is from somebody who is in whose name is in Cyrillic characters, so I am not really able to see what that is. Any other questions or comments? Okay. So I'm just going to vamp for a little bit. We've been going for about 30 minutes. I think these recordings will be saved on my YouTube channel. Just a couple of things to let you know. If you don't have a terms and conditions document, and or if you have questions about anything that I've said during this presentation, let me know. You can reach out to me by email at tcarpenter@carpentertaylor.com. I believe this is going to be recorded, and you can probably see it on either my Facebook page, which is Facebook.com/media travel law, or on my YouTube channel, which you can just do a search for Tom Carpenter travel law, and you should be able to find it. Um, but again, if you are interested in having a conversation about it, more than happy to talk to you. Shoot me an email. That's the best way to get in touch with me. I routinely provide complimentary consultations for new clients. If you have a question about what it's like to work with an attorney, or you want to talk to me about drafting a terms document for you, happy to have that conversation with you, explain how I've done that before. I try to keep my rates low for terms and conditions drafting, but also if you're an ASTA member, I participate in the ASTA attorney referral program, so I have discounted rates for ASTA members. And ASTA, by the way, is providing some really, really fantastic resources. If you're an ASTA member, you're probably getting those daily updates from ASTA, and the one today had linked to 3 or 4 articles about the impact that the crisis in Ukraine is having on the travel industry and on travel advisors. Really, really helpful stuff. ASTA has done a phenomenal job in protecting our industry during the pandemic, and I would just encourage anyone, if you're not already an ASTA member, they are very, very worthy of your support. So let me know. Let me know if you have questions about ASTA, because I'm more than happy to tell you why I'm so passionate about ASTA as well. All right, so I'm not seeing any other questions, but I see Jean is there. Thanks so much, Shannon, for the little plug. I appreciate it. But if you need me, you know where to find me. I'm an email away. Just let me know, And if people found this helpful, definitely let me know that too, because every once in a while I see questions coming in, and this is kind of my first time using this program. And if people would like to have a Q&A about other topics, feel free to shoot me an email about something that's on your mind, and I'm happy to maybe do another Friday afternoon um, webcast, web chat Q&A. All right. Thanks so much, and have a great weekend, and stay safe, everyone.